Connecting to the Methernet. Methernet now connected.
This is the Wally and Methot Show Live. Now, here are your hosts, Brent Wallace and Mark Methot.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Wally and Methot Show Live. Brought to you today, as always, by sportsinteraction.com. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Big guest today. You're going to be excited to stay around for this one. Sorry we're late. We were actually talking to him too long. Sportsinteraction.com is Canada's online casino and sportsbook. Sportsinteraction.com/Wally and Methot for the most competitive odds and live daily betting. Check us out on Twitter every Sens game. And as Nostradamus breaks down the matchup and gets you ready to place your bets, including today, Meth, as against the Edmonton Oilers, you have won 5 straight games, and today you picked the Oilers, which probably isn't a surprise.
No, but they're loaded up front, Wally. I don't want to get into it right now. Obviously, we have our guest waiting, but this is going to be an uphill battle for the Sens tonight.
Speaking of a great weekend, I hope you had one. There was a bunch of Canadians that were disruptive and made a lot of noise internationally. Of course, I'm talking about the men's national soccer team with the 2-0 win over the Americans, and now they sit atop the table. And so it looks like they're going to qualify for the World Cup, hopefully. Been waiting all day to talk to you about that. By the way, now let's just get to our guest. I'm super excited to bring in the Whitewater Chat. He's the perfect guy to share a beer with, let's be honest, as he can tell stories for days, which is why I said we're late earlier. Rob Ray, the former Buffalo Sabre, 2-time Ottawa Senator. Many of you may not remember that. We'll get into that as well. He's intimidating as they come. I even once, by the way, Meth, felt the wrath of Rob Ray in 1997. Now, he probably won't remember this. I'll bring it up and see if he yells at me again. But I did not like it at the time as a 23-year-old, and I still don't like it today. But since 03 or 04, I guess he's been part of the broadcast in Buffalo. I'd like to welcome to the show our good friend, Rob Ray, sir. Fantastic. By the way, don't forget to use the Wally Methot coupon code for 15% off. I forgot to mention that, so I apologize. I'm just excited to talk to Razor, who's, by the way, in his workshop, it looks like, as he carves out wood sticks for the rest of the world to continue to still use them. Razor, my friend. There you are.
Glad to be with you.
Look at the wood sticks.
This is my retirement fund, actually. I never made anything playing, and I'm thinking at some point that I probably could sell some of this stuff, and that'll be enough to maybe get one of my kids through school.
How many sticks do you have?
Good question.
There's probably 500 here. Not all just on this wall between my son's room and downstairs in the basement, but I always thought it was cool. Every time I went into the dressing room to play, I always thought it was going to be my last day, and I was like, hey, I've got to have something to make sure that I remember this whole experience and take something with me. And so it just became a habit. And I not only the guys that I played with, but I tried to get them from guys that are respected around the league. And just over the years, you don't think about it at the time. And then all of a sudden, when you got to go put them in one spot, it's like, holy hell, what do I got here? And now I don't know what to do with them.
So did any player ever say no to you in giving you a stick?
Eric Lindros.
Come on.
I think it was a scenario when I asked him. It was in Philadelphia, right? And he got smoked by somebody. And the 2 trainers were on the ice, and they were helping him off, and they were coming past our bench. And as he was coming off and he's hanging over, and I'm like, hey, Eric, any chance I could have your stick? And that was the only real no I got. So I didn't ask again. But I did
timing
get one
is
after
everything.
a while. Yeah,
That's amazing.
Oh,
I guess you learn timing over the years, eh?
Yep.
Okay, so there's lots to get to. You're in Buffalo. You've covered the Sabres now forever. Can you assess the Arundel situation for us? Because it's still a hot button topic here in Ottawa as he got his 3-game suspension.
3 games, yeah.
Was it, okay, from where you saw it, was it fitting for what happened on the play? And if you were on the Ottawa Senators, what would have happened to Arundel?
Well, we did talk about that on our broadcast, that we were totally surprised that nobody in that game, due to the score of the game and how the Ottawa pretty much had things in hand, that Aaron wasn't challenged a little more than what he was. There was some guys got in the crease, pushed around a little bit, but nothing done. When you lose a player, I don't care if it's your best player or your worst player, you're showing that it's a team. It's a team, and you just lost somebody on your team due to something that didn't need to happen. And, I was, surprised. Not in the big picture, though, because the players this day and age aren't brought up that way and they're not taught that game anymore. So, there's so many nights we sit there and we're like, this would be the perfect time for somebody to do something, to get a little spark, get the guys going. And then you sit back in the same breath and you go, they have no idea how to do that because they're not taught that way and they're not coached that way anymore. So it kind of quickly goes out of your mind. But, in this situation, Aaron, did it need to happen? No. Did he think it was, the guy was gonna get injured on the play? I don't think he did that. I think Aaron's a pretty cool guy but he's an aggressive guy. This isn't the first time this year he's left his crease and made contact. Earlier, about 2 weeks earlier, he came all the way over to the left wall at the hash marks and let the puck go and smoked somebody over there. He came off his feet, knocked him to the ice. He got a penalty for it. So he is an aggressive goalie. He's done it in the past, pretty similar to this play as well. Do you like to see it? No, you don't like to see anybody get hurt. And you have to say that he was in the wrong there. But, on the other side, too, you do like to see guys be a little aggressive. It's unfortunate it's your 10th goaltender in the depth chart that has to come out and do it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you on that, Ray. I think for me, I was surprised no one did anything either. I know people were like, well, yeah, they're up 3-0, but at the same time, like, this isn't a playoff game, nor is it a team that's probably going to make the postseason. So it would have been a good opportunity for something to happen. I know you're not going to come on here and condone anything because obviously you're covering Buffalo and all that, but he's done it to other players and nobody's really like, and the same thing happened to Mark Stone. I think it was Mark Stone was another guy that got clipped by him and no one was really done anything. So I feel like until that happens and someone actually challenges him like that, he's just going to keep probably getting prompted to doing it. No?
Well, yeah, you're not going to get stopped. Maybe a suspension and the fine is, kind of deter him a little bit, but
True.
I still say it goes back. I go back to, the days when we played, Mark, that if something happened, then you policed it yourself. You don't sit and depend on outside sources to deal with stuff like this. And for nothing, it draws a team together. It bonds a team, and it shows team unity. For us, we had an incident. Remember when Lucic ran into Miller years ago in Boston?
Yeah.
And smoked him. Nobody did anything. Gostad, all these guys were on the ice. Nobody did anything. I'll tell you what, that hit destroyed this team for 2 years. And, the next time you played Boston, there was a lot of talk leading into it that somebody had to do something. And I think Gostad felt that he had to do something and didn't want to. I don't think he addressed it, tried to in that game. But that means nothing when you do it down the road. It has to happen instantly. And I think in Ottawa's case right there, it was a perfect time for them that they could have done it. Boom. Even if you don't have the guy, the 5 guys on the ice just go and, get in there
I agree
and
with
do
that.
something. It doesn't have to be a full-out fight or anything like that. Or you don't have to hurt Dell or anything, but you have to address it.
Yeah, and well, in Buffalo, did you guys have, other than Gostad, who was a huge man, but not like super tough, I don't think, like not by those old standards. Was there anybody else there? Because Lucic, like that's a heavyweight.
I'm just thinking if
right?
John Scott was on the team back then. I'm not sure if he was around at that
maybe.
time, or Adam Mayer would be the only other guys. But there was nobody that, but the point even back then, it was like, it doesn't have to be one. It could be all 5 guys that are on the ice and just go and nobody's going to get hurt from it. But it sends a message, and it also, kind of builds that unity.
Yeah, I agree.
We'll get to 2 of those actual incidents a bit later in the show because you were in both of them, but one you were a player and one you were a broadcaster. The goaltending situation, have you seen anything like it where you are, as a team, out of goaltenders?
Oh, last year. It's happened to us 2 years in a row here. I think we used 6 last year. What are we on our 7th this year?
You guys went through 6 last year?
Yeah.
Oh wow! I didn't even. Wow. Okay.
As long as you
do my homework,
you couldn't even count them after a while. How many guys were coming through the door? And it's even now it's you go to the rink and it's like, okay, which one is them in? Which one's healthy? Which one's so you just never know. The good thing is the guys that have come through, they've all played really well. And there hasn't been that one guy that was just to the point where you couldn't put him in the net. all of them have come through and they've had good games and they've won games for this team. So,
Yeah.
on that hand, it's been good. I just look back and I think the goaltending position used to be, you used to look at the goaltending position as one of the toughest guys on the team, not physically, but because they could play night after night, back to back. They could play whenever you wanted to them 70 times a year if you can lean on them and it was no problem. Now these guys can't even play back to back or anything like this. So the soft
Yeah.
side, I think, has snuck into the goaltender department in the NHL.
Well, we hope that Craig Anderson will get to win number 300 here as he sits at 296 and continuing. I want to know, Evander Kane, he played in Buffalo. Are you shocked by any of this, of what's transpired? And are you okay with, I guess, Edmonton going out and acquiring a guy, obviously, of his talent, but maybe a bit of a distraction in the room? I don't know. You tell me.
Yeah, I get to know Evander a little bit when he first came. When he first came, it was like, hey, here's a guy just needs a break. He needs a shot. He needs to get somewhere new, fresh start. But after a while, it just seemed when you get a little comfortable in the round, just started taking advantage of things a little bit more. And, I know within the room, not very popular amongst the guys just because of attitude and, living habits and the way he was away from the ice. There's no question on the ice. He's a heck of a player and he can contribute to a team. But I think along the way, there's always going to be something that you're going to have to deal with in some scenario, whether it's something that happened in the past, it's going to come up and it's going to be within the room, or, what he may do moving forward still. So is a distraction. I think it was a huge distraction here. And I think there was a lot of guys when the time come that he left, it was like, thank goodness it's over with, let's get away from this and move on. So, am I surprised that somebody signed him? I'm kind of surprised somebody signed him maybe as quick as they did and are willing to, to jump into that in a situation where you're looking for help and trying to get a team turned around. You got some young guys that not always the best example for some guys in the dressing room.
Yeah, that's the concern,
fair
I
enough.
think. And it's always like this in pro sports, right, Ray? Like it's like, does your talent outweigh your baggage? So a team figured,
Yeah.
okay, we can use his services. I guess we'll try him out short term. But you made some points there as far as the concern being more long term, right? Like in the room and the effect that he's going to have. So I guess we're going to have to wait
You
and
know
see
yourself
there.
when you have something in your room that's a distraction. It's not just amongst the guys. Everybody on the outside knows it. So everywhere you go, they're not coming to Evander to talk to it about this. They're going to the guys in the room to try to get the story from them, or what their feelings are. So
Yeah.
it's something that doesn't need to happen. And I would think for a young group of guys or anybody, I can see it maybe if you went to a team that was loaded with veteran guys, established guys, where they'd be able to hammer them right down, right off the heart and say, hey, this is the way things are going to be. But,
Yeah.
you thought that might have happened in San Jose when he went there.
I was just going to
Yeah.
say that. Yeah.
Hopefully
San
didn't,
Jose.
So that kind of
Yeah.
throws that theory out the window.
Yeah, that's fair.
Would you have him on your team if you were the head coach?
Putting him on the spot here?
I don't think I'd want to deal with it if I could, have something different.
Yeah. That's fair.
Okay,
Okay, let me
okay.
wait, Wally, before we move on
Yeah.
from Buffalo, I just because I'm just defenseman, right? This Rasmus Dahlin kid, like,
Yeah.
because I watched him the first couple of years. I know the team was not very good, so he didn't get a lot of support. I'm seeing some like serious shades when they played Ottawa the other week or last week, I think. He looked really good in moments, and then sometimes, almost like a riverboat gambler, he'll make a big mistake, right? And it causes some sort of odd man rush or whatever. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts there with him? And like, I know he's had a revolving door of D partners. Like, overall thoughts on Rasmus Dahlin?
I think he has improved tremendously. I think that,
Yeah.
Raz, as you said, when he first came in, he did not have help. And he was a guy that everybody kind of looked at first overall. He's going to come in and he's going to light things up from day one. And that doesn't happen because you didn't have the team in front of him. But
Yeah.
personally, I know this guy, talk to him all the time. He's a huge competitor. He wants to get better all the time. When he doesn't have a good game, his first call is to Don Granato after a game on the way home.
Oh, really?
Don, we got to watch video. Don, I'll be there at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. Can you meet me? So he puts in the effort and time because he wants to be the best. And yeah, you see him sometimes get himself in jackpots out there. But I think that the thing that they're working with him on is making sure that he doesn't think he has to save the world every night, that he can go out and
Yeah.
play his game. I think playing with Yoki Haru has been really good for him. Henry kind of settles him down a lot. They played him with
Agreed.
Mark Pesic early in the year, and Mark's a solid guy, but he understood what his role was at that time, and it was just try to get him calmed down and comfortable on the ice. But as for the times you see him make a mistake now, there's 25 other plays that he makes that are lights out. And this guy
Yeah.
has a target on his back every night. And every player on every team that you're playing against, they're trying to get a piece of this guy every night. And he's learned how to, take the hit, not put himself in that bad position to get hit really hard. He pushes back an awful lot. Now there's nights then he's, the leading hitter on our team sometimes because he's playing that aggressive. But I think picking and choosing his spots a lot better now. When to be up the ice, when not to. But defensively, I think he's got way, way better.
Yeah, I agree. That's fair.
Okay, I want to switch now to your time in Ottawa and also facing Ottawa. Brought to you by BEI, Bonisher Excavating Inc. BEI specializes in excavation, grading, drainage projects, also equipment rentals, aggregate, and topsoil sales. Visit BonisherExcavating.com. BEI, helping to shape the Ottawa Valley. All right, you are you have the sixth most penalty minutes in NHL history, but you only have 18 of those as a member of the Ottawa Senators. You played 11 games as a Sen, and you did it in two separate instances. You talked about being traded at the deadline. How did that play out, and were you okay going to Ottawa? Because back then, Ottawa-Buffalo seemed to be a pretty big rivalry of the times that I covered these two teams facing each other.
Well, the first year that I got traded there, our team was not making the playoffs. It was in a tough spot. And Darcy had come to me earlier in the year and said, hey, if there's a place that you'd be willing to go, that was a good team, would you consider, taking a trade? He said, because the direction we're going, we're moving in a different direction. I thought it was cool that he approached me on it and just didn't do it. And at the time, it was early in the year. I said, yeah, but I want to make sure that it's somewhere that I'd want to go. When the time came, I was happy. I was excited about it. Ottawa was close to where I played junior at the time. My sister and brother-in-law and their kids were living in Cornwall still, so I was able to go back there quite a bit, and they were able to be around, the games and everything and get a little feel for what it's all about. So, yeah, I was excited about going, and I was excited about the team because playing against them at that time, it was probably one of the most talented group of guys I was ever on the ice with. I was on the ice with some talented guys, but not as many as what was in the Ottawa lineup at that time. And yeah, I was over the top to even be a part of it. I knew going into it you were going to play much, but you just wanted to be around. The conversation I had with John Muckler coming into the situation was, I want you to come here, work with the guys. Chris Neal at that time was a young guy. He says, and Jason Spezza, we were roommates on the road, and he goes, these are the guys I want you to work with. These are the guys that I want you to, kind of help along the way. And I was like all over it. I was all over it, and it was fun. But until I got to Ottawa, and I get called into Jacques' office the first day that I get there, and he looks at him and he goes, "Hey, look, you're not here because I want you here. You're here because John Muckler wants you here." And right there, I'm like, "All right, here we go. You just kind of popped my bubble there, son." And it was, it was kind of a surreal situation at that time. But I was, 35 or so at the time, and it was. You kind of understood it, and it was like, whatever, Jacques, I'm just happy to be here, and I was going to make the most of it. I'll tell you, I had so much fun. Being in one organization for so long, you just kind of get in your mind that this is the way it is, and this is the way it always is on every team. But when you got to go to a different place, you saw something different, and I think it was great for me that, at the end, I was able to go and see something different, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the guys. There was such a good group of guys, and I think that might have been a little bit of the downfall. They were also nice and got along so well that that internal pressure sometimes wasn't always there that they might need at certain times. But I'll tell you what, when that year was all said and done, and you created a great relationship with Chris and Fishy and those guys. You spent a lot of time with them and Jason on the road, and that summer I get home and a picture comes to my house, and it's a picture of Bobby Orr flying through, signed, and thanks for your help with Jason. He really that was like. I could have ended it right there, and it was the coolest thing ever because he thought enough of me and for what I tried to help him with, and he gave something back that meant the world to me. So my experience there was the best, and I loved it.
That's
I'll
interesting.
Actually bring up Spezza again because Spezza, one sec, Matt, Spezza wore so you went to Binghamton in your second
Yeah.
time through Ottawa to get conditioned, more number 9. The next year was the lockout. Spezza goes and wears number 9 in Binghamton in honor of you. And because I remember asking him, like, why did you wear 9? He goes, because of Rob Ray. And I had no idea that you two got that close so quick. Are you still close like that today?
Yeah, when we see Spazza, it's always you have to take the time, you have the conversations, you're talking about everything different now than with the time. At the time, you're talking about how to handle situations and the business itself and different people in the business and all that kind of thing. The game within the game. Now you're talking about wives and kids and family and all this kind of thing. That whole conversation is taking a 360 But I respect the heck out of what this guy was able to do. And, at the time, that first year, too, I think we were playing, I don't know who we played in the playoffs, the Islanders, Jersey. And he wasn't playing a ton until the end. He got in at the end, and he did really well. And, you sat back every night, and every night he went out and played well. It was like, yeah. And you felt like you had a little bit of peace the way he was, nothing to do with the talent the kid has. It was off the charts. It was more the way he was handling the game and the situations, and it was cool. I'll tell you what, it was. When I went to Binghamton that second time, Mux had called me, and he said I was in Nassau with my wife, and we're literally laying on the beach, and the phone rings, and because we had just had our first child, and I hadn't skated in 9 months, and Mux calls me, he goes, "What kind of shape are you in?" And I'm like, "Great." And he goes, "I need you here tomorrow." And I look at my wife and I go, "We got to get out of here." So it was like fly home from Nassau, get to Buffalo, and I hadn't skated. And we got home in time that I ran to the rink and skated a little bit, got in the truck, drove up to Ottawa, practiced that morning, and he goes, "It looks like you're ready to go." And I'm like, they were playing that night at Ottawa. I go, "Oh, great. Who are we playing?" I think it was Boston coming in or something. And he goes, "No, you're playing in Binghamton tonight. Or you're playing in Syracuse tonight for Binghamton." And I'm like, "What?" I said, "Okay, I'll give you a week." I said, "If you don't bring me back after a week, I'm going home." And went down, spent the week there, and it was a week from hell. I remember the first shift on the ice in Syracuse. Is it Sugden or something? The big
I was
kid
just
that used to fight?
Razor. Brandon Sugden was like one of my mentors in Syracuse for a couple seasons, and that still shot of you just there that they showed was Brandon Sugden. How did that fight go? I never saw him. I never saw Sugar lose a fight ever.
He came up to me and he goes, "Are we gonna go?" And I'm like, "I haven't skated in 9 months. Can you give me a period at least to warm up?" The puck drops and all I hear is "Nope." And I'm like, son of a perch, here we go. And it was just pride not to, just giving what you had. And it wasn't a whole lot. And it was pride not just to go down. And the fight's over. And you know how small that building it seemed in Syracuse?
Oh, yeah.
And I was like 30 feet away from the penalty box probably when it was all said and done. And I looked at the penalty box door and it looked like it was in Buffalo, like 4 hours away. And I didn't think I was going to make it to the box. And, that night after the game, I didn't know I had to sign up for food after the game, and all this kind of stuff. So you get on the bus, I had no food, luckily the guys on the team were like, here, I got it. And then they get home and they go, "Oh, you got to come out with us." And I'm like, it was the first time I ever fell asleep in the corner of a bar because I'm like dead. I'm just casually sleeping in the corner. But that week, it was amazing. We went to Springfield, yeah. And we played that night. We got on the bus, leave to go to Springfield. And about an hour outside of Binghamton, the bus breaks down. And I'm like, okay, what do we do now? And they go, we wait for help. So like 4 hours later, the help showed up. They get the bus, or we got another bus, I guess. We get to Springfield, and it's like 5 a.m. And so I'm like, okay, we get to sleep all day, right? No, it was a noon game that day. And I'm like, what? I walk into the rink, and Marty McSorley was the coach. Laughing when he sees me come through, and I'm like, "Marty, I am dead." And I told him the story, and he goes, "Don't worry, I won't have anybody come after you. I'll just, keep them all away from you." I'm like, "Oh man, that's awesome." Very first shift, I can't even remember the kid's name. I think his brother was playing in bingo at the time, and he comes up to me and he goes, "Legend, are we gonna go?" And I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" I look over the bench, and here's Marty laughing his head off, like he's just laughing, and I'm like, So luckily the kid laughed and he took off and we didn't fight. And that game, I go back to the bench. I remember doing it once and I said, "Hey, Scotty Allegrino was the trainer." And I go, "My skates are messed up." And he goes, "What?" I go, "Come on, I went into the room back down behind. I laid down on the floor. I put my feet up on the bench and I'm just laying there dying. He goes, "Get your skates off." And I go, "There's nothing wrong with my skates, dude. I just needed a break." And it was but it was so much fun. And I played more hockey in those 3 games, I think, that I was there and that I did in the last 2 years. I was on a power play penalty kill. And who was the coach?
John
Who
Paddock?
the heck was the coach?
Paddock.
John Paddock was there.
Yeah.
And at one point I said to John, I came over to the bench and I go, "John," I said, "I'm programmed for 3 or 4 minutes a game." I go, "Not 20. And he looks at me, starts laughing. He goes, "Shut up and get back out there." And I'm like, "Okay, here I go." So, but he was awesome. When I left, he knew how much it was a struggle, and he gives me a big 8x10 of the bus and all the guys that signed it and gave the jersey and everything. It was an unbelievable experience. So to do it all over, I would do it in a second.
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
For sure. People don't understand the grind in the American League, right? Like it's a lot different from playing in the NHL.
And you forget about it. You forget because
Yeah.
you get spoiled here. And, you're
100%.
rolling back in at 3 o'clock in the morning from a road trip and they expect you to go in and hang up your equipment. You can't hang it up because it's all frozen together. So it's one big pile.
Yeah.
And then you go home and have to be back there the next day. And, you pay a price down there. If a guy can be successful in the American League, he's fine up here.
Yeah.
So good. So the question I had, knowing how Jacques barely played you, and then you are basically retired on the beach, why did you come back?
Just the love of the game. It was the love of the game, and it was that drive to, they had a great team again, and it was like just to be a part of it. It was, I couldn't say no, and my wife's like looking at me, going, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I gotta go.
Yeah.
And you just, I was always told by guys, coming up through, he says, "Just go out your way, and play as long as you can until nobody wants you anymore." And when I looked at that, I had a chance that next year to go back to the American League and go to Binghamton again. And I go, "No, if I'm not going to play up top, that's enough." And, you kind of walked away and the opportunity came up here to do the TV. But are you kidding me? It's your life and that's what you want to do. And there was no way I was going to say no.
I was going to just piggyback on that. Yeah. But the Jacques Martin question, when he said that to you, Razor, like what was going through? Like, I'm surprised that Jacques Martin even said that to you in the first place because he's such a meticulous and intelligent guy. I was like, so was there like some animosity there? Why would he even mention it?
I don't know. I don't know if it was over the years just playing against him and what it was. And it definitely wasn't his style, the style that we were playing or I would play. So he, I don't think he appreciated that way. I asked him one time when we were there and we were playing the Islanders at the end of that first year. And it was meaningless games at the end. And they came into Ottawa, and I can remember they just kicked the crap out of us. Guys were getting banged up. They're hurt. And I'm like looking at Jacques, and I kind of said to him, at one point, I go, the next day, I go, why, like, when they were getting banged around, why didn't you use me? And kind of maybe settle it down and give these guys a little bit of, help out there.
Confidence.
And he goes, "You know what?" He goes, "Rob Ray." He's called me Rob Ray. "Rob Ray, my view is if you avoid it, it will go away." And I'm like, "It didn't go away, Jacques. It was there for 60 minutes last night, and you guys took a beating." So I don't know what that did to the guy's confidence on the bench, but yeah, and even my last game with Ottawa, we played in Toronto. I scored on my last shift. It was a backhander in Toronto. I score, and I come back to the bench, and he never played me again from that point. And there was like 3 games left in the season that year. And Jacques would always call everybody into the middle, right, at the end of practice and say, "Hey, you're playing, you're not playing, you guys stay out and skate." And it was always Shane Knighty, Rob Ray, Shane Knighty, you play defense, in practice, and you guys are skating. And the guys I think were always so intimidated of Jacques that I was like, okay, I'm going to say something just to say it. And he calls into the group, and before he had a chance, I said, "Hey, Jacques. And he goes, "Yes, Rob Ray." I go, "I swear to God, if you put me in tonight, I promise I will not score." I said, "I will just play and not score." He looked at me, he turned red, and he goes, "Practice is over." And he just skated away, and that was the end of it. So I was like, I got my last little parting shot in there.
That's great.
I will get back to you scoring your last in a minute. You had 2 fights as a member of the Ottawa Senators. Both of them, I think, were big for different reasons. Let's go with the first one. You played Buffalo only once. You had to face your former team. You fought Andrew Peters, who I know you two talk a lot these days because you're both in the broadcast booth, if you will. Your reaction, or how did that all play out? Was that just a stage fight? What was that like?
No, I never would
And
have
was it
fought
weird
Petey in 1,000
facing
years.
your former team, by the way?
I never would have fought Petey in 100 years. It was not something. And I had earlier just had hit Danny Briere or somebody down in the corner, and I had got a penalty for it. And I'm looking across the ice, and I'm kind of giggling at Lindy because I just knew what he was going through and what he was thinking at that time. And before the penalty was officially over, he had put Petey on the ice. And Petey never even came into the play, and he just stood outside the penalty box, and he's yelling at me, and I'm like, calling him a puppet and all this kind of thing, and I'm like, I knew he was going to do it, and knew what was going to happen, but I also knew at that time that I could say stuff to Petey and get him so rattled that when the time come to fight, he wasn't going to be able to think about what was going on. So it came out, and we went at it, and it was what it was, and afterwards, Petey's like, I'm sorry, man, I'm sorry, I go, I know, it's not your fault. I said, Lindy sent you out, and I get it. I've done it 1,000 times for him. So I didn't hold anything against him on it. And now we sit back, and that picture you see right there, I've sent it to him 500 times every so often. And, good try, and, sorry about your luck, and next time, and all this kind of thing, just kind of egging it on. So it was something that happened. Did you want to do it? No. I didn't want to do it, but it was just something that I knew he was put in a tough situation.
So was it weird to face them? Because you had played so
long.
I'll
tell you, it wasn't weird to face them in the game in Ottawa, but I ended up playing for Ottawa in Buffalo one game, and I was never so nervous and scared in my life that I was like, I just sat there. I was, 36, I think, at that time, and I was shaking going into that game because I was so nervous to play in front of our fans that you did for so long, and it was a nightmare the whole night. And I was glad when it was over. Put it that way, and it was a great experience, and it was one last time that I knew I could play in front of our fans because you never had that last time in your building, and they were fantastic with it, and it kind of gave you your opportunity to kind of go off and walk away and never do it again.
Okay, let's talk about your last fight in the National Hockey League because it goes down as it's the biggest brawl in NHL history. That is March 5th, 2004, in Philadelphia, where all hell breaks loose. And you kind of started. You and Donald Brashear are the first fight of that game. Take us. Did you I'm assuming you knew that stuff was going down.
Well, every time you went on the ice, you would in the back of your mind, you were always prepared for something to happen. I think if I remember correctly, it was a scramble in front of the net. Goaltender got into it a little bit, and then Donald comes in, and we go at it, and that was that was a fight. It was the last one, as you said, and I never got cut in fights, but I was leaking, I think, from both corners of both eyes in that one by the time it was all over, and you skated off, and you're like, okay, and I could just feel when I was going back behind the bench that the eyes of Jock just burning holes in you, going, what the hell are you doing type thing. But anyways, I sat in the dressing room, and I'm not sure that somebody else might have got kicked out at the same time, but it was like every whistle, something else happened. Somebody else was getting in a fight. And it was like every 3 or 4 minutes, there'd be somebody else walking into the dressing room. And, because they had got, kicked out of the game. And, I think if I remember correctly, isn't Jason Spezza the all-time single-game leader in penalty minutes from that game?
It's 52
still for you guys.
Yep.
Yeah,
but I'll tell you what about that. Oh yeah,
that's good.
I bring it up to him all the time.
But I'll tell you what, every guy that walked into that room after getting kicked out was the most excited guy I saw. And they were coming in, they were going crazy. They were, yeah. And the next guy, and as soon as somebody would come through the door, the guys in the dressing room would start cheering. And it was crazy. But it was the group of guys, I think in that game right there, they realized that they had never played. Most of them had never played that way or had to be in that situation before. But they realized that it was it wasn't so bad, that you could play that way. And if you had to, you could stand up and do what you have to do. And, it was going to be fine. And I'm listening to these guys, and it was like there were a bunch of kids in that room, so excited and going crazy. And, because of what they did and, how it turned out. And, I thought it was good for them at the time. I think it was a good stepping stone for a lot of those guys to realize that, you could play that game and you could get out of it unscathed. But you still kind of drew together as a group too, as well, and as a team.
Do you talk? I don't know. It's been so long, obviously. Have you had chats about that brawl ever with Philadelphia Flyer players at all ever?
No, I never have. No.
Are you a little disappointed that you were the first one out?
No. In those most cases, that if you're not the first one out in my scenario, then the pressure would build and build and build, that you were going to have to go and eventually do something. But I would bet in that case that if I wasn't the first one out there, that I never would have got on the ice. Jock never would have put me on the ice, because I probably knew it was going to happen. And I would have sat there through the whole thing and just been a casual observer from the sideline anyways, and not ever get to be a part of it.
And never mind, like, you don't want to be, so you mentioned like for team building, I totally get that. I've been in situations like that where you're all coming back into the room and everyone's chanting every time a new player comes in. But like, you don't want to be the last guy sitting on the bench either, right? Like,
no, you don't. And there was only like 4 or 5 of them left on the bench by the end of the game too. So everybody else that was in there, they're bleeding, they're having fun, and they're like, and then here comes 4 or 5 of them walking in the room going, so you're looking at them. No, they all came in going, I wish I could have. I wish I could. I didn't have the chance. I wish I could have. So
100%.
Their way out.
And one of those last players was Marty Havlat, who had started the whole thing, the whole game before anyway. And he's still sitting on the bench like, what's going on, guys?
Marty Havlat and Pat LaFontaine were probably the 2 of the dirtiest players I ever played with, stick work-wise. They would do so much crap out there, stir so much up, and then sneak out unscathed. And, it was just seemed like it was always that way. I can remember one night in Chicago, Patty LaFontaine and Chelios hated each other. And Chelios kept going at Patty about he owed him $50 or something from a card game or something from somewhere along the line. And the 2 of them started going at it. And the next thing you know, I'm on the ice for some reason with Patty, and they all start going. And I got like 4 guys, and Belfour's into it, and Chelios, and I'm under the pile, and they're just hammering me. And I remember Patty sneaking under the pile with his gloves. And he hands me his 2 gloves. And he goes, put them over your face. Put them over your face. I grab the gloves. I put them on my face. And I look, and he sneaks out of the bottom of the pile, and he was gone again. And that was the end of it.
No way.
At least he tried to help out a little bit.
That's
didn't
amazing.
Leave me hanging there. He helped out a little bit, I guess.
Before I get to the Chris Neal, Chris Drury hit in Buffalo that you were in the broadcast booth for, what was your relationship like with Nealer when you were here? Because you're 2, I guess, alpha males, 2 tough guys. Was there any animosity between the 2 of you?
I think at the beginning a little bit, Nealer thought, me coming in there was kind of, maybe taking his position or, taking time away from him. But I understood that, and I tried to go out of my way to make sure that Nealer realized that I wasn't there to take his position. I was there to maybe help him along the way, and that at no time was I going to be in the lineup and he wasn't, type thing. And that was something Mux and I had talked about coming in. And, he says, I just got to teach this kid what it's all about, how to play that game, how to play that role. And, I think over time, that barrier came down. And by the end, like I said, you became good friends. And him and Fishy used to live together. And, you spent an awful lot of time with those guys, getting to know them away from the ice. And I think over the long haul, I think he appreciated the help along the way. But, I think at the beginning he was a little nervous that I was there to take it. But, I made sure early, as soon as I got there, that I was letting him know that I was in no position to be there taking his spot. It was just there as a mentor and try to help.
You fought Denny VL, by the way, Ottawa Senator, 8 times, I think, one of the tops that you were, and I watched a couple of those. Those were nuts. Who's you?
Denny the Dancing
Was he
Bear.
one of those guys that you didn't want to face?
No, I didn't mind. I'm looking at that list right there, and there's really You know who I did mind facing was the second guy, Paul Rouse, because he was tough as nails. That guy could fight like anything, and very underrated guy in the fighting world back then. But no, as far as fighting those guys, no. Denny, you always know it was going to be an honest fight. You were going to be able to stand there. It wasn't going to be a grapple and wrestle and all that kind of thing. You knew you were going into it, and the gloves were down, and you were going to throw punches, and you were going to throw punches till the end. Till we each got tired or somebody hit the ice. And, I respect the heck out of Denny. I got to know him, years after we were done. Actually, Denny came to a training camp here one time at the end of his career, and he was here for training camp. So I got a real good chance to get to know him and talk to him a lot. And afterwards, I've done some alumni stuff with him down east where he's living. And awesome guy. And, it was nice just to kind of sit and tell stories and experiences and to get to know the guy a little deeper, because at the time you don't hate people when you have to fight them like that. You respect most of them. Some you don't respect, but in most cases you do. That they've got a job, you've got a job. And I think in a guy like Denny, that whenever he felt that he needed to get a momentum change or do something for his team, if he came to me, I was willing, and vice versa. If we were looking for a spark and I had to get something going, I think Denny understood that too, and he was always a willing combatant. So I think that's how guys that had to play our role gained respect and gave respect to each other in those cases.
Razor, I got to ask you one question. I got to ask him this before we don't ask him this. And this is
go ahead.
Obviously Quebec City back in, I think it was like 92 or 93. I got to do it, man. I got to ask. So this 21-year-old comes on the ice, a fan, thinking it's a good idea. I love this video. It's probably one of my favorite hockey videos, and I'm not even bullshitting you. So talk to me about this and what was going through your mind, and was jail ever a consideration in the moment when you were feeding him 20 shots?
No. You know what had happened? On the ice, there was a 5-on-5 fight that Herb Raglan had ran Clint Malarchuk. So everybody on the ice is fighting. So we're on the bench and we're watching, and all of a sudden you kind of look out of the corner of your eye. Here's this guy had climbed up on the glass behind the bench. And I got a great picture of Mux. He had Kenny Sutton's stick, and he goes, "Give me the stick, I'll get him." And just as Mux was going to poke the guy to knock him back into the stands again, he jumps in the bench. But I had worked my way down to where he was. We had grabbed onto him, threw him onto the ice, and thinking it was over. He jumps back up and comes right back to where we were. I got a hold of him with my hand and his hair. I had it on the boards. I hit him, I think it was 18 times. And I stopped because my hand got so sore. But by that time, the cops had come on the ice, and they're jumping on him. They wrestle him down. They get him off. You look out on the ice, and there's bullets laying all over the ice that had fallen out of the police officer's belt or something. They're out there picking bullets up off the ice. You look down to the Quebec bench, and they're all just sitting there going, "What just happened?" And, you hear this guy in the back hallway screaming because I don't know what the cops were doing back there to him. But come to find out afterwards that he was climbed onto the glass to protest the violence in the game. And then
what
ultimately leads to, they did an interview. It's online somewhere, and it's in French. But,
I got to find it.
He did an interview. They went to his house, I guess, and the whole premises of it was him protesting the violence in the game. And then it led to that scenario right there. So did I think about jail? No. At the time, it was a totally different world then. I think it cost me like $4,000 or something because we had to get lawyers and that. And at that time, the team wouldn't pay for it. They literally took that money out of your paycheck, and you moved on. But for the $4,000 or $5,000 what it cost, it was worth it to to have something like that forever. That especially this day and age, the kids are always looking at it. And I coach a 12-year-old team now, and periodically it pops up when we're at tournaments sitting around, and the kids go crazy over it. So it was worth it.
Did he ever say, like, I know I don't want to hammer, I know I'm beating this topic like a dead horse here, but did that guy ever release a statement after or talk about his experience being introduced to you on the ice?
I'm not sure. It was all in French. I don't understand it. So in this interview he did, I've never had contact with the guy, and I was always like, I tell our guys, if we ever go back to Quebec for any reason for games or anything, we got to look this guy up, and I got to go knock on his door and say, "Hey, dude, that's me. How you doing? What's up?" And so I think it would be a great segment.
Nice.
It would be. I recently watched the documentary that the Sabres did on the Chris Drury hit by Chris Neil. Now, you've now played
Yeah.
with Chris Neil, and so as you see this hit, which is a blindside hit, and in today's game would have been suspendable, but at the time it's not. As you see that hit, like what? And you're between. By the way, if people don't know, Razor's between the benches doing the broadcast, like Ray Ferraro, if you need some example. So when you see this hit, what's transpiring? What's going on in your mind?
Well, at the time, it was kind of a heated game too, and there was when he made that hit, it was like it was like the whole rink just kind of like, oh my god, because at that time Drury was, he was the guy here, and he was very well respected, and
Captain.
and yeah, and when Chris hit him, was it clean? No, but it was something that at that time it's not you never saw it, but it was something that happened more often than not.
Yep.
And it just created an explosion within the building. You're talking about teams reacting after somebody gets hit. That was the way you should react after a hit. And I can remember being in the box, and when I was in the box, because Harry Neal and Rick Jenneret were the two up top, and I wasn't always on live. So when I had to do something, they turned the mic on, you did it. But that was the first game that the producers are saying, hey, you know what? He's comfortable with both teams. He knows both teams. So let's go live tonight. So it's hot. And all of a sudden it happens, and things are going on in the ice. And I can remember when Lindy came through into my box and the door blew open. He slipped. He hit his shin, and he was going crazy. And see Murray there, and I hear RJ in my ear going, "Cover your mic, cover your mic." And I'm like, it's not going to make a difference. It's not going to make a difference here. And I'm just sort of looking at both sides going, okay, I thought it was funny. I didn't think I should start laughing. But them being friends, Lindy was a pretty funny guy. And he at the beginning, it was more teasing Brian, and it was kind of giving him shots. And then I think as it escalated, it got a little more serious. And you see the two of them going at it there. And the things that Lindy was kind of saying at the beginning, that it was hilarious. And I'm sitting there and I'm laughing and I'm trying to hold the mic and I'm listening to RJ, and he's trying to cover up so we didn't hear everything that was going on and being said. And it was great. It was a great experience. It's another one of those, I look back at my career, and that and the Quebec thing is what everybody ever wants to talk about when you go somewhere. There are always questions about the two of them. And it was pretty surreal.
Okay, I understand what happens on the ice is supposed to stay on the ice. I just want you to tell me what this conversation was like. I need some sentences. Well, there probably weren't any sentences. I need some words.
Well, I can tell you a part that they were friends. They are friends. They were friends, I guess, now. And Brian, as you know, stuttered a little bit when he got excited. And I can remember Lindy going, and he started going on like that, and Brian just got fired up. And then it was, from that point on, it was like, it's over. And then they started just a lot of swearing back and forth, and about the hit and how scenarios and who was going to go on the ice and what each other were going to do to the other team. And
fair enough. That's
a lot of F-bombs in there. Yeah.
So, but was there any time that you were worried about laughing?
If you see my face, I was not scared in any way. I was like, trying to, because of what was being said both ways. And I was just trying to show respect on each side there.
It's so good. Okay. The following, so just before that was the face-off, and Murray puts out Mike Comrie, Danny Heatley, and Daniel Alfredson, and Buffalo counters with Adam Mara, Patrick Coletta, and Andrew Peters. Like,
yeah,
I to this day, I can't fathom why Brian would do that, thinking that this is not going to boil over.
Well, I think you go back to the old Jacques Martin scenario. If you avoid it, it'll go away type thing. And if I put those players out, then maybe, he'll understand it and kind of diffuse the situation. But at that time, Lindy didn't coach that way. Lindy coached an aggressive game, and he always had aggressive teams and players. And it might have been different if we were on the road, but at home, he was taking a stand. And I think that's the reason why.
Well, the funny part of that, I think Adam Mara goes, I'm making the line change right? Or he's the one that said, I'm going
Yeah,
out.
Adam did. He's come
Yeah.
public and he said, yeah, I looked at the coach and said, I'm going. And, at that point, Lindy would buy into that in a second, and he allowed them to go.
Oh, it's wild. Like, so did you like playing against Ottawa because there was such a rivalry, it seemed?
Yeah, it was Ottawa and Toronto at the time. I think that we had the best rivalries against because you played them so often, and you seem you faced playoffs there once in a while. So yeah, I think for us, from the time Ottawa came in, it was a tough game for us because it seemed like even when they were
Yeah.
an expansion team, we could never beat them, and it was always rolling into the old rink downtown, and we'd get beat, and it was always hell for us when you lost to an expansion team and everything. But they had our number quite a bit, so it did create a little bit of that hatred for each other. But I think over time, the way Ottawa had built the team into such a talented team too that you had to be so careful that you couldn't go out and play anything other than their style of game to try to beat them because they were so talented, and they hurt you in a lot of different ways at that time.
Yep. Yeah, it was fun. The two battles between those two teams with Ryan Miller and net and all that stuff. Oh, we should have mentioned that fight, that the Chris Drury thing was also the Ray Emery, Andrew Peters match that went on
Marty
for a
Braun as
while.
well too. Yeah.
Yeah, but Marty just was like, he was like the warm up act.
Well, Marty still lives off that. He still thinks that was one of the greatest things that ever happened to him in the game. So.
Fair enough.
That's funny. Okay, I want to switch things up and switch a bit and talk a bit about your career in general. Brought to you by Gong Show, gongshowgear.ca. Of course, that's where you can order all the official Wham merchandise. Gong Show Gear is the official gear, by the way, of lifestyle hockey apparel. Go to gongshowgear.ca. You brought it up earlier about scoring in your last game, which was your 900th career NHL game. You also scored on your first shot, on your first shift, in your first NHL game. It's a wild bookend. And you only scored 41 goals. I don't mean that as only. I've never scored any. But it's got to seem kind of surreal that it happened that way for you.
Yeah, for me in that first game when I got called up, we played the night before, went to Pittsburgh. And, I didn't play early in the game. I got out and, for my first shift midway through the period. And, I took a slap shot from inside the blue line on Tom Barrasso, and it goes in. And that might have been the only slap shot I might have ever taken in the NHL. And somehow it finds through his legs and in. And it was the greatest experience of your life. And, at that point, it was like, things could end right now, and I don't care because, I made it. I played my game. I scored my goal. And that night, I think statistically wise, I think I had a goal and assist +3. And statistically wise, it was the best game I ever had in the NHL.
Good
And
stat
from
line.
that point, it just kind of went downhill from there. But it was, as you know, when you score that goal, it's something that can never take away from you. You made it, you did it, and it was an amazing feeling. And then when I got the score on the last one, it's like you score off the draw, you're feeling good about yourself. You go back, you get the eyes burning through you from Jacques, and you sit there the rest of the night, and it was like it's over. Like right then, when you didn't play the rest of the game, you knew it was over. And so that's why when I said when they came to group, I told him I promised I'd never score if he puts me in again just to play that one last game. But when you look at it now, I guess it was a pretty cool way to say that first and last shift, and you're able to end it on a goal. So for a guy like myself, that's pretty neat.
I don't want to say you're old, but your last game ended in a 2-2 tie.
Really?
Yeah.
Could have used me.
So do you
to
know
get
who?
that third one?
Do you know who assisted on your last NHL goal?
No, I think it was right off the draw. I couldn't tell you.
Antoine Vermette with his second assist, and Chris Neal assisted on your last goal.
Antoine Vermette, my very last jersey that I wore in Ottawa, they were always gracious to give you the jerseys at the end. And I had it sitting in my stall, and Antoine thought I was getting everybody to sign it. And he comes, and my last jersey that I have that I ever wore in the NHL has got Antoine Vermette's signature across the back of it.
Well, and
I'm like,
played
what are
with
you
Vermy.
doing? He goes,
He's such a nice guy.
To sign it. And I'm like, yeah, Nimrod, I didn't want anybody to sign it. It was my last one.
That's funny.
So do you have it hanging somewhere with Vermy's signature?
Oh, it's in a box somewhere. He doesn't deserve to get hung up.
That's awesome. We can't go without asking about Ty Domi, and I'm sure you get asked about him all the time.
Yeah.
But you fought 13 times. Are you two friends?
I'll tell you, at the time, we go back so far. I was Cornwall, he was Peterborough, and we played against each other all the time. When we got drafted, we had the same agent at the time. Uh, I can remember Rolly Thompson was my agent. He pulls into my driveway because the draft was in Montreal. It was Rolly was behind the wheel, Dan Daou in the front seat, Ty Domi in the back seat, and I jump into the back seat. And I'm looking, I'm like, oh my God. Ty never shut up from the time we left our house in Sterling to Ottawa or Montreal, which was about 2.5 hours, just bragging about everything. And I'm like, we got there and I'm like, this guy's driving me nuts. We get in the room and we start wrestling and kind of clipped his head a little bit off the corner of the nightstand and was like, we got to stop. And it was over. But I'll tell you what, that weekend, I was so excited for him by the end of it, and he was over the top excited for me because we both had got drafted. And, we go out that night and have a great time. We drive back. They drop me off the next day. We shake hands and good luck and see you later. And the next time you come across each other, I think our first fight in the NHL was he was in Winnipeg, and we went at it. So 13 more times later down the road. And when it was the last one, we fought here in Buffalo the last time, that I knew it was to my end. And it was kind of like we tapped each other in the top of the heads and it said it was a great ride. Thanks for everything. And we kind of skated away and that was it. And we had a chance 2 years ago, I think it was. Ty came into town and we were on the ice surface and we dropped the Jumbotron down. Andrew Peters were there and we went through all 13 fights and kind of broke them down, who won, lost, and everything
That's
about
cool.
them. And it was fantastic. And, Ty was great with it. And we really had a chance to kind of bond a little bit and spend some time with each other. And over the years, we had done things for each other, different signing things and that. Ty was always into something, so he was always looking for, help here and there. So over the years, and I'm so glad that I got a chance to get to know him as a person. I think he's a wonderful guy. He does a lot of great things out there. He's a great father. We stay in touch, when we're in the areas, when he comes in and watches kid play, that he always gets in touch and we make sure we meet up. And so at the time, did we like each other? I don't think we didn't like each other. We just knew that it was something that we had to do. I know there was a ton of pressure on him every time we'd play against each other, because I know when he got to Toronto and it was, leading up to the games, Toronto and Buffalo were such a rivalry that it was not about the game, who was going to win or lose. It's like, are you guys going to go? And if we didn't go in a game, the first question after was, why didn't it happen? And, I think people look forward to it so much that, a lot of the nights you might not have wanted to do it, but you just knew you had to do it. It was part of the game. But it was always an ongoing rivalry between us. And it was fun and it was respectful and nobody got hurt out of it. And in turn, I look at it at the end that I've, created a friend along the way.
Interesting you say you two did a story about it, because when you came to Ottawa, I requested to speak with Ty about and do a sit down with the two of you about your careers fighting each other, and he wouldn't do it. So I've always been a little disappointed in Ty, but I've always liked him.
Hey, we did it. We won an Emmy for it too. So, hey, we're big time.
Good for you. You guys produce some really good stuff in Buffalo. I will tell you that. If I got two other questions. If I brought up Dallas or foot in the crease, do you cringe, or how long did it take you to get past that?
It was tough. It's one thing losing, getting beat, it's okay. You can handle it. But in a situation like that, you might have ended up losing the game. You might have ended up losing the series down the road. But it was kind of taken away from you in a situational call the way it was. And it hurt. It hurt a lot. And, I think most guys, we got together a couple of years ago at our 50th anniversary. I had a bunch of guys in town, and it always comes up. And everybody just kind of, it was so close. It was right there. It's kind of taken away in that fashion. And then after the fact, it hurts more when the league comes out and says, yeah, we made a mistake. It shouldn't have been, it shouldn't have happened. But by that game had gone into, it was late. And, by the time the goal was scored, the Zamboni doors blew open instantly. The guys upstairs that were the NHL reviewing that, like, instantly packed up and were done. So even if you were in a position where you could take a look at it, there was nobody to take a look, and there's 500 people on the ice. So what are you going to do? Throw them all off and get everything hooked up back upstairs again today? So, yeah, when it was kind of taken away from you in that way, it definitely hurts. And I can be on the road with the team, and you walk into the Dallas dressing room, you see that Stanley Cup sitting there. It's kind of a kick in the crotch.
I don't blame you. Last question, unless Meth comes up with any, is do you have a favorite teammate or a favorite roommate?
Oh, man, I had a lot of good guys over the years. Dougie Bodger was my first roommate on the road. Dave Hannon, Rhett Warner later on in the career. I think Lindy kind of put us together so we didn't disrupt everybody else on the team. We kind of did our own thing, and away we went. But I'll tell you, we had some good times. And as far as roommates, you know, back then you could choose who you wanted to be with, and it was nice because you always sometimes you get stuck with that guy that you weren't quite meshing with, or the same type of people periodically. But when you had one that you enjoyed, it was unbelievable. I remember Dougie Bodger, you know, my first year here, he showed me everything, and a lot of the bad things too, that, you know, you kind of look back now and go, oh my God. But no, a good roommate, especially a veteran roommate, that's what they tried to do back then a lot, was a veteran with a young guy to kind of help them out. And you know, they were fantastic. Dave Hannon was one of the funniest guys. He was my line mate, and we fought all the time, whether it was, you know, on the road, whether it was, you know, in the dressing room in practice. But we had a lot of good times. I can remember Hannah and I'd always on the road, we'd set up, it's called the Diners Club. So when we get into a town, you know, everybody was, you brought this, you brought the cheese, you brought the crackers, you brought the bottle of wine, you brought the cards, you brought the chips. And everybody would kind of join in our room and sit, and it was kind of the diners club you had before you went out for dinner that night. And so, yeah, I learned an awful lot from those guys, and I was very fortunate to have some good ones. And Rhett Warner and I, over the years, we still laugh sometimes and go, how the hell do we play the next day sometimes?
That's so good. Okay, people want to know, because I've asked this to everybody else. What's your favorite snack if you're sitting around watching a movie?
Snack? If I was going to the electric chair, I'd want a bag of Doritos and a jug of chocolate milk. I think that's my favorite thing that I could ever have in my life. Away from all the fine food and that, those two things right there. If I'm down and out or I'm hungry, it's chocolate milk and Doritos, and I just go for a drive.
That's fair enough. Razor, I've had a great time. It's one of my favorite chats, and the stuff that you can tell for hours is phenomenal. And so I appreciate you taking the time, stopping by to have a chat with us on the show.
Well, you can only tell so much because you don't want to get in trouble anymore. So it's kind of keep it away, keep it clean.
Well, in part 2, we'll get into all that stuff.
We can do that. But I appreciate it, guys. It was fun. It was a lot of fun, and thank you for having me on.
Thanks, buddy. Take care. There goes Rob Ray, who's a 15-year NHL veteran, 6th all-time in penalty minutes, and really one of the good guys who intimidates the hell out of me. I didn't tell him. I forgot to ask him about the story. So is he still there, Scotty? Okay, Razor, I got to bring you back because I could totally forgot this. In 1997 at the Bell Center, you're doing a practice. I think it's an off day. And at the time, you could smoke in the Bell Center. So I'm standing there, and I smoked at the time. And you tap on the glass and you look at me and go, hey, there's no smoking in here. And I'm like, yes, there is. And you're mad at the time, I'm like, it's Quebec. We can smoke wherever we want. And you yelled at me afterwards in the hall room outside that you were smoking. You can't smoke. I'm like, yeah, we're allowed. Do you have any recollection of this?
No, but I don't. But that was very disrespectful on your part. You should not be smoking in that building when there's world-class athletes trying to better themselves out on the ice. But no, I don't. I can remember going to Austria though one time in training camp, and we played Tampa over there. And one side of the rink could smoke, and the other side couldn't. And I was like, I don't get that part. And after the game, it was like your jersey was yellow because there was so much smoke in the building, and it was the most disgusting thing I ever seen. But yeah, to each your own, I guess. I hope you quit.
Oh, it's so good. I did quit. But I do. I'll always forget
See,
that
I
moment.
might have helped you. I might have been the influence to save your life for your family.
I appreciate that. So again, I owe you not only for this. Now I also owe you for saving my life as well. So now I can let you go. Anyway, take care, Rob Ray.
Take care, guys.
Who's just take care, my friend. Color for the Buffalo Sabres and does a phenomenal job in the broadcast, but really one of the true good guys. And looks like Methot only is paid up for 1 hour, and so it is out. And with that, I will say goodbye. Thanks for watching the Wally Methot Show, brought to you by sportsinteraction.com/Wally Methot. We'll see you next time.